So Alberto Lopez gives the next talk on that topic.
Thanks very much. The idea of this talk, white wings in planetary nebulae are not new to any of us, I think. And the idea of presenting this talk was because while browsing our catalog, spectroscopic catalog, we realized that there are many, many objects which show this feature, and I think we are using properly the information. And trying to see the big picture, as Ursula said when we started this morning, how can we make use of all of this information regarding all the phenomena that we're trying to deal with, as is the mass loss processes, symbiotics, binarity, etc. So the idea of this talk basically is that to show you interesting line profiles that pertain to different stages of evolution, different kinds of targets, and to call your attention to these kind of line profiles that need further research from our side, I believe. Okay, so the source, the data we're using is from our catalog, the SPN Kinematic Catalog for Electroplanetary Nebula. The database has now over 650 planetary nebula, more than 3,000 spectra, maybe 3,500. So this is largely single order shell spectra with essentially two types of resolution, 5 and 11 drops per second. And it is a very efficient tool to identify out of the ordinary or non-ordinary planetary nebulas, as I will show you. So this database has allowed us to study groups from a broad perspective that gives us an additional interpretative advantage. And you know, as they say, one image is equivalent to 1,000 spectra. So when you have many spectra, what you get is essentially perspective on what you're studying. And regarding this, I will just advertise a talk by Margarita Prey on Tuesday, where we are putting together the kinematic evolution of planetary nebula from the early stages down to the last stages. And I think it's a very nice result what she has done from her PhD thesis. Okay, so why are these objects interesting? These objects with wide H alpha. Well, the easiest answer is that they are, most of them, polar bipolars that allow us to gauge close to true alpha velocity, so we don't have to deal with all this thing about deep projecting velocities. We know that symbiotic D-type nebula also show this kind of wide wings. They show a strong red continuum, usually from the late companion, the minor. This kind of data allows to identify non-PN among the PNE population, which is important. So we can really say this is PNE and this is not, and this is symbiotic. So we have to clean the database in both cases. And something which I think it has not been given proper attention is that in the case of young planetary nebula that have gone through recent episodes of very high mass loss rates, they develop massive H1 envelopes. And if you produce Lima beta photons, then you're going to have Raman scattering of photons that will produce these lines in the dense shells. Well, let me go back. This is a typical example of a nearly polar planetary nebula, planetary with a Wolf-Rayet type nucleus, M315. This is the spectral range for the single orbital shell. See, this is wavelength, this is arc sequence along this scale, H alpha, and the two lines. And as you can see, this is what you usually expect to see in this data for planetary nebula. You don't see a red continuum, you don't see continuum at all. And you see that the extended wings appear in both sides, both in H alpha and the N2 lines, like in this case. This is the HST image for that particular target. Right. So this is another target, square 1. As you can see, there is no stellar continuum. The bipolar outflow is clearly evident in both lines, the H alpha and the N2 lines, and we have here this nice bipolar. This is an interesting target, all one. You can see the helium next to H alpha, you can see this broad H alpha line, which is clear here in this drawing, that goes from about plus 200 to minus 100. This is the O3, but it doesn't show at all this broad wing. It's exclusively coming from H alpha. This is something weird, I think at least. Again, here we see the stellar continuum, not very prominent in the red section, the helium-2, the H alpha profile. And look again at this broad H alpha wing. But look at the type of object this is. Where is this H alpha, broad H alpha wing coming from? I'll just get back to it with more targets like that. M224, again, there are some doubts on whether this is a PN or is a symbiotic brain response because worked on this target, and it's not very clear what kind of target this is. It looks like a PN, certainly. We don't have a strong continuum. There is just this broad wing in H alpha, but some strange wings in the M2 lines as well. Now let me go to young PLanetary nebula. This is the case of IC 4997, prototypical case in here. Look at how wide the H alpha wings are here. Look at the N2 lines do not show those wings, okay? And well, in this case, it has been proven that these wings are due to Raman scattering. It has a dense core, your 10 to 9 cubic centimeters, scattering Lyman beta photons, okay? And the H1 envelope that is required to scatter these photons has been actually measured by a Schuler. It has a column density of the order 10 to 20 per square centimeter. So this is a target that has gone through a very heavy Mathos episode. It has produced this neutron of hydrogen envelope around it, and it's scattering photons and producing this beautiful line profile. The next case, this is a target that comes from Zahai's sample. You see that's exactly the same thing that is happening. It's a very young PLanetary nebula. You can see here the very broad wings coming from H alpha. This is the continuum subtracted profile. This is 500, about 600 meters per second width in the line. And due to the Doppler enhancement factor in Raman scattering, we can guess what the velocity from the emitting region is. In this case, say 300 meters per second. So that means that the kinematics of the emitting region from H alpha is about 50 meters per second. So there is important information embedded in this profiles. There is another case for a very young PN, a low ionization PN. This is from the picnic catalog from Bruce Valley, together all this beautiful information there. Okay, this is another typical case. These are another two targets which are likely young PLanetary nebula, remains to be proven from low resolution spectral and additional infrared data. But again, look at the characteristic spectrum. There is no red continuum. There are very broad wings in H alpha. This is the enlarged spectrum for H alpha, and in this case, this is the enlarged spectrum. In all cases, the width of these wings are of the order of plus minus 500 meters per second. Now we go into the section of symbiotic. Some of them, I'm not saying this is the previous ones, they may turn out to be symbiotic. It's not so a clear-cut definition for when you have a young PN and when you have a symbiotic. This one, I don't think it has been listed as a symbiotic, but to our eyes it looks very much like one. You will see it has this very bright red continuum. It has the broad H alpha wings that we expect from these targets, though in this case they also show up in the N2 line. And you can see this highly pinched, very tight waist, a bright core, and this bipolar structure which is reflected very nicely in the line profiles from the shell spectra. This is the case for M29. Bruce Valley pointed out to the very wide wings that appear in this that we know now it's a symbiotic. You can see here that the lines only appear in H alpha. They are absent in the M2 lines, and they are wide. I mean, plus minus the other characteristic in this point is the physical profile. I mean, the absorption here in the middle, which I don't think has been convincingly modeled so far in these cases. It's not that easy just having an outer envelope that is going to absorb the H-alpha radiation there. There are several explanations in that case. Here we have another case for symbiotic. Again, the broad continuum is not very conspicuous. You can see the wide H-alpha wings here. There is some extension in the end. It's not as wide as in the case of H-alpha, which is huge. And again, we have a highly pollinated target, very narrow waist, bright core, very much like MP9 and the previous ones that I showed you. And if we go to the next one, we see again the same thing. Okay? If we look at the morphology, again, it's highly pollinated, a very narrow waist, a bright core there. And we see this extremely bright and wide H-alpha wing with a conspicuous absorption for a P-Cygni type blind profile. Okay? This is the M2 orbiter, and that one is the other one. That's the ghost. So we go to HD12. See the talk by T.M. Clark, the previous talk by on NIFs was absolutely superb, and we believe that really is the way to go next. We think this target is also symbiotic, and we've done NIFs observations, reconstructing imaging and some kinematics at the resolution that NIFs allows on this target, and it's incredible. We are seeing it emerge. There are three bipolar structures, very much like the Salmon Grab that Romano Murani showed us many years ago. It's very much like that one. And just a short advertisement, we will be finishing Frida, which is an integral spectrograph for the ground telescopic areas in 2 years that will be delivering. And there we will have 30,000 resolution that will allow us to actually make kinematics of these targets, and it will have a scale plate of 20 million arc seconds. So it's going to be superb for this kind of work. Okay. So now then, we go to some puzzling objects. This is sharpest 2721. It's actually, it should be rotated 90 degrees, but this is the image from Gemini. And again, this doesn't look very much like a very tight bipolar as we were looking at before. Not very much like the young PNs that we were looking at before. This is an evolved PN, and yet the central star shows this white H-alpha line profile with a P-Cygni type absorption there. So where is this material coming from in this kind of object? Another example is Savvy 3. Exactly the same thing. This is an evolved bipolar. We see here that's the sleeve. I can get a better image for this one. And again, we have a very extended H-alpha line profile. That means there is a shell of material outside the central star, and I wonder if at some point it will be related to these infrared rings that we are seeing in things like the ring nebula. Okay. Well, these are two targets which are very much like just PLanetary nebula, but have been actually cataloged as symbiotics. So that shows you that it's not really easy to identify where we are. Well, two more symbiotics. Now just, well, this deserves something of concern. You know, in ICE 31475, I just take 10 seconds. This is so spectacular. I mean, we've had this for years, but I couldn't. I had to show you this. This is the bright continuum from the central star. The lines are so wide that they just go out of the spectral range. Okay. This, in this case, so you can see this is well, this slit goes like that. This slit is red shifted, I believe, this cuts across this way, and the other one is goes like that. That's the blue shifted line in front. And you can see, for example, this is 65, 48, this is H alpha, and this is the other Natrium 2 line. And the other way around, the shift is plus minus 1,000, 1,200. And it's a spectacular spectrum, just want to show you. And finally, well, just the wide H alpha winds help identify planetary nebula with unipolar or large bipolar flows. Help disentangle planetary nebula from symbiotics, so it helps us to clean and include populations happening in both cases. Help identify junkian or pre-planetary nebula with large neutral envelopes from recent perimatocetic cells. And help characterize the kinematics of the inner emission region the posterior rally scattering. And help identify the separate objects. Well,
Thank you.
I'll just leave it there.
There's no time for questions. We're actually running well behind schedule, and I have a lot of people want to comment. So we're going to move right to the next talk.